Hey everyone, I'm Michele Paiva, and today we have somebody very interesting, Laurene Hope, and she is going to talk about recovery and how to manage having struggles emotionally, mentally, but without medication. So welcome, and please share your story. And first, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a really interesting background.
Thank you. Well, yes, my name is Laurene Hope. I was born in Dublin and I grew up in Israel. And I come from a very interesting background of Russian Jews, and who music has been a really big thing in my life due to my grandfather. He used to be a violinist and he used to tour everywhere. And then I took on music, and I'm a singer, I'm a writer, a producer. But the biggest thing that happened to me is 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I went into a therapeutic community where I was so lucky. I was taught how to manage my condition without medication. You're not allowed to use medication. And about a year into the process, I had a very difficult time in there. It was a lot of tough love, but I'm so grateful because about a year into the process, I had a massive awakening. I realized that my childhood, which was very, very difficult in Israel, was not my fault. And I had a huge awakening, and that was really what got me into the space of becoming what I've become. So I came out of the community. I started my theatre company. I started to tour as Edith Piaf and Maria Callas, and my life was getting really good. I started my own TV station called Moving on TV to help a lot of people. And then last year, all hell broke loose, and I had another massive dark night of the soul. My father died. My family cut me off. I had an accident. I broke my leg. I was in a wheelchair for 4 months.
Oh, I can't.
And my whole life fell apart. And instead of letting it destroy me, I decided to use it. So thank God I'm coming out of it. I'm walking again. Not perfect, but that's my next journey, how to heal the body without medication, because I never used medication for that either.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I never, ever use medication for BPD. Mm-hmm. I actually just made a film on Moving on TV called How to Stay Sane in a Crazy World. Mm-hmm. And it's got 10 tools.
Okay.
And which I'm going to create an online course and cards that people can actually buy, like a deck of cards.
Yeah, that's great.
So they can learn the tools and use them. And I'm working on my music, and I'm trying to learn how to ground myself enough to be able to earn money from all the things that I do. But my message is loud and clear. You can manage mental illness. I never tell anyone not to take medication. That's not my job. But to me, medication makes me worse in every single way there is. Physically, and it numbs me. And as an actress, you don't want to be numb. So I use everything that I've learned from all my spirituality, and the therapeutic community is where I went for nearly 2 years, as I said. And my creativity and spirituality, Course in Miracles, Buddhism, everything I'm learning, I'm using that in order to teach other people to manage
real quick. Let's back up, because some people don't know what borderline personality is. So could you give a little primer on it so people can understand what it feels like to have it as well?
Okay. Well, I like the name complex needs disorder, because that's the new name for borderline. Yeah. So the way I explain it, then it's a lot easier to explain. Mm-hmm. The way I explain it is, we used to have Woolworths, and I think you probably in America, where you would go, you go there and you pick a few sweets, different kinds of sweets. Well, BPD, or complex needs disorder, to me is the same. It's like you get a little bit of every mental illness that is out there, and you can have different spectrum of it. So I have a bit of bipolar, I don't have bipolar, but I have a trait of bipolar.
Right.
I have a bit of OCD, a bit of autism, a bit of ADD, a bit of every single condition, depression. Mine is narcissism. Narcissism was the biggest trait that I had, and therefore everything related to me. And I couldn't be around people anymore because I would get so jealous of everyone, and everything I could relate to me, everything. So I was always the worst off. There was always something worse with me than everyone else, and I have to watch that. And what I learned in the community,
could we go deeper into that though? Could we go
deeper
into the narcissism? Because so many people think of narcissism as, and I see this all the time, and I have videos on it, where people say, you know, oh, get away from a narcissist. And narcissists, they kind of make it like a narcissist is this horrible person, but if you have ADHD or bipolar, they're okay because that's a mental illness or an emotional struggle, but narcissism is villainized. So could you tell us a little bit more about what it feels like to actually be narcissistic? And I do believe that a lot of people have a bit of it. I really do. So
everyone has BPD. Everyone's walking around with it.
No one wants to admit it, but
that's a really, really good question. When I was sick, then it was very, very damaging because, as I say, nobody was worse off than me. Both my parents were narcissistic, and I grew up with narcissistic mum and dad where everything was about them all the time. However, being a lot better now, thank God, and managing the condition, I think it's amazing because it gives me the opportunity to accept that I have got to sit with myself and I've got to figure everything out according to me. So, for example, say pain in the body, which I'm working on at the moment because I didn't have an operation for my leg.
Wow.
If I'm narcissistic enough, I can actually sit with it and I can go back to all the incidents that have created unhappiness and pain in me because we're all different. So this is my uniqueness. So to be narcissistic in a positive way is incredible because the other thing is I find that most people that are being diagnosed and are narcissistic, they're creative. They're very, very creative. They're artists. They're people that are not performing. They're not going out there and they're not doing what they love. So to me, my narcissism is finding what is suitable for me. And I found that the life story of Edith Piaf and Maria Callas, who were very mentally ill, is totally, totally suited to me. And the songs are totally suited to me. So that's where narcissism is. It's all about balance, Michele. It's all about you've got to find balance. So if narcissism goes that way, too far that way, then you're going to be awful to live with. Because everything's about you and nobody else matters. So it's a bit like you're autistic then because you cannot empathize at all. If you have none at all, then you'll go that way and then you won't even be able to have any, you won't even care about yourself, nothing. But when it comes into the middle, and that's what healing is. That's what Buddhism is. That's what everything is about, finding that bit in the middle. And that's what we did in the therapeutic community. We used to sit together and people would say, can we find that bit in the middle? And to me, that's the answer to manic depression, to bipolar. But like I say, I never play God. I never say to people, don't take your medicine. That's my journey, and that's the journey of people that go into a therapeutic community because you have supervision all the time. You're always supervised, and you have 24-hour support system from the people that are in there, not the staff, but there is an element of supervision. If you're on your own, you have to go to the doctor, and you have to decide what to do and take these ideas on board as well. But to me, everything's about finding that bit in the middle. Where you're able to see everything from a bit from the outside. So you become like you're watching everything. You're the watcher. And then your narcissism is the thing to celebrate because you can nurture yourself. Because I know a lot of people that nurture everybody else.
Yeah.
And they never nurture themselves and they get so sick, bless them, physically and in every single way. So the good narcissism is, yeah, it's good to care about yourself. It's good to want to do things to make yourself happy, but everybody else is included. Another way it manifested with me was, I'm going to make you laugh. I've run theatre for years and years and years, but when I ran it with this condition, before I was diagnosed, people used to say the ego has landed because it was all about the show and me. I could never see people and their problems and their issues, and everyone has their own, you have to see people. People are struggling. But when I came out of the therapeutic community, it all changed. So now the people that work with me, we're friends because they come before the show. Wow. The show, and there's not, it's so different. It's so different, but it's really good, as I say, to have a healthy amount of narcissism, because you need to take care of yourself. If you don't have that, then you'll go out and, I don't believe that that's a person that's happy, a person that goes out to give it all outwards. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, definitely.
I hope it does.
A lot of people talk about having a narcissistic mom. So if you have a mother who's narcissistic, what does that feel like, especially to a daughter? Because a lot of the viewers are female. So let's be specific on to a daughter.
I didn't have a mom until my mother was so narcissistic, bless her. And so was my father. But my mother was the kind of mom where she was always about her. Everything was about her. And my father was her enabler. So unfortunately, growing up, I wasn't allowed to be me unless it made my mom happy. I wasn't allowed to be unhappy. It's very, very, very difficult to be a child with a narcissistic parent. I believe that the reason she was like that was, first of all, she grew up with a mother like that. We did discuss this years later. But she still didn't take responsibility. Even when she was dying, bless her, she was still at that level where you were a very difficult child. But she did move on. She's my best teacher. So her mother was very much like that, very stuck and cold and narcissistic. But she was suffering. And I believe that when people are suffering, that it's hard for them to give love. How can you give love if you don't love yourself? Right. So I've forgiven my mother. I've done a lot of work. My father died last year and he was 95 and he was adorable. I got to the level of where we wrote a book together. Oh. And even though he did apologize on and off for being very tough with me and for the way that I was brought up, he could never see that my mother was not a good mother. So it was very, very difficult. But they're very, very good teachers. And I believe that they were there to teach me what I know. So if you have a narcissistic mother, I hope, you see, we live in a different time to when I was a child. When I was a child, things were not noticed the way they are. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. I had a narcissistic aunt. Everyone in my family were completely mad. I mean, they really were crazy people, bless them. Very, very, very crazy. Irish and Jewish, can you imagine? Really. Lots of shouting and screaming. So a very narcissistic aunt, very narcissistic mother, a father who really did his best, but he used to just shut off from both of us a lot, from the three of us. And I didn't get on with my sister because she ran like anything. She ran. So I was very much on my own. Wow. And I think maybe once this lovely lady, she kind of fostered me and my sister on and off. She asked me, because I had a serious eating disorder, because I think a lot of children who have parents like that will turn to food.
Yes, I noticed that with my
addictions.
Clients. Yeah, a lot of the narcissistic moms will have children who are either they are going anorexic or very into controlling their food or very into controlling supplements or exercise or turning to food and overeating.
Yeah, that's right.
And not knowing how to trust themselves.
Well, I had my food and my singing, and that was the whole of my life. And those, you see, you create identities. And when you start to heal yourself, those identities have to go. They have to go. Like I say, I was obsessed with food. I was obsessed with the stage. I don't have any of them anymore. It's quite difficult because I don't have anything to fall back on now. It's like I have to sit with all my pain when it comes up and go through it and go through it. It's the only way. There's nothing to fall back on. So you learn more and more to let go. And the bottom of it all is this huge hole, this little 11-year-old that sat in Israel, whatever, this teen that sat there with no friends and didn't want to be in Israel, just wanted to go back to Ireland. I hated Israel. So I was very lucky when I met my husband and my eating disorder disappeared. I don't know how. It was like, boom, just went out the window. And I was a compulsive overeater, but I wasn't bulimic because I was a singer. So I was lucky. I didn't want to harm my throat. So I wasn't bulimic. But food was everything to me. Food. And then it became the stage. And I kind of swapped things over. When I went into the therapeutic community, I realized they used to say to me, sit with it. And I couldn't in the beginning. We had a bell. I used to ring the bell all the time and say, help, I can't go. And at some point when I had my awakening, then I started to sit with everything. And all the spiritual philosophies now are saying to me, when you feel like it really bad, just sit with it. Just sit with it, and nothing can harm you. Nothing will happen. Huge panic. I'm doing it. I've done it. This is why I can teach now, because I get through it. And now my big journey is how to heal physical pain. I'm working with that but I believe there's a big connection, physical, emotional. It's very, very connected. And I also know that I learned a lot from my mother, that when you were in pain, you got more attention. A lot of attention, and so it's all in there in the subconscious. And you work through it more and more, and
wow, that's fantastic. Well, we're actually almost out of time, but
already God.
Well, you know what? No, I want to have you back, because here are the things I want to talk about with you. I want to talk about more about what it feels like to have borderline, because a lot of people think about ADHD and they think about even narcissism, but they don't think about what does it feel like to have borderline. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about singing and finding your voice as a person, like both physically and spiritually. And I want to be able to talk about disordered eating with you, because that's something that affects so many people as well. So, all right,
thank you so much, Michele. That's lovely. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Lots of love. Bye.